ICEM, standing by you.
Kabadde katale kansimbi era bwe katyo katututte ewa Kitunze Gomba oluvannyuma nkomawo n'agava mu kisaawe ky'ebyemizannyo sigala ku NTV. NTV akawungezi gano gege byemizannyo ag'olwaleero. Kyaddaaki abakulembera ekisaawe ky'e Namboole ne bannaabwe abafufa batuuse ku kukaanya ku nsonga z'ensimbi ezibadde zibagugulanya okumala akaseera. Kino kiddiridde Minisita w'ebyemizannyo Charles Bakabulindi okutabaganya enjuyi zombi mu lukiiko lwe yatuuzizza mu ofiisi ye.
Enkayana wakati w'abatwala ekisaawe ky'e Namboole ne bannaabwe abafufa ezibadde zirabika okugootanya enteekateeka za Uganda Cranes ez'okwetegekera empaka za Africa Cup of Nations zirudde eddaaki ne zinogerwa eddagala. Enjuyi zombi ezibadde zigugulana olw'engabana y'ensimbi eziva mu mipiira gya Uganda Cranes zamaze ne zikkiriziganya Namboole etwaleko siringi 1,700 okuva ku buli tiketi eyingiza omuwagizi mu kisaawe. Namboole yali esabye ebitundu 15 ku buli 100 ku nsimbi ezikuŋŋaanyizibwa, so nga fufa egamba nti basaanidde siringi 10,000 okuva ku buli tiketi eyingiza omuwagizi. Bakkiriziganyiza mu lukiiko lwe babaddemu ne Minisita w'emizannyo Charles Bakabulindi oluvannyuma lwa Ssaabaminisita Mama Mbabazi okubajuliza eyo. Fufa yawaaba ensonga zino ewa Ssaabaminisita Mbabazi ng'egamba nti Namboole babinika ensimbi nnyingi ze batasobola kusasula. Fufa era yakkiriza nti Namboole babanja obukadde obusukka mu 100 era ne bakkiriza nti baakuzisasula. Wabaddewo obunkenke nti enkayana zino ziyinza okuviirako emipiira gya Uganda Cranes okutwalibwa ebweru wa Uganda ng'ekyazizza. Cranes yakukyaza Madagascar nga 3 omwezi guno mu kisaawe Namboole mu mpaka ez'okusunsulamu ttiimu ezinetaba mu mpaka z'ekikopo kya Africa ez'omwaka ogujja. Sam Mpoza, NTV akawungeezi.
Webale nnyo Sam Mpoza. Agava mu World Cup abateebi Diego Costa aguchangira mu ttiimu ya Atletico Madrid ne Fernando Torres owa Chelsea be bamu ku balondeddwa omutendesi wa ttiimu y'abanantamego b'ekikopo ky'ensi yonna aba Spain. Diego Costa w'emyaka 25 yazaalibwa mu ggwanga lya Brazil era n'azannyira ttiimu ya Brazil emipiira gy'omukwano 2 kyokka oluvannyuma n'akyusa eggwanga lye n'afuuka Omuspana. Newankubadde nga sizoni ewedde yatebedde Chelsea goolo 5 zokka era ng'emipiira mingi abadde ku katebe. Fernando Torres y'omu ku bateebi abayitiddwa mu ttiimu y'eggwanga lya Spain. Spain nga be bannantameggwa b'ekikopo ky'ensi yonna baakuba Netherlands mu 2010 okuwangulayo ekikopo ekyo ekyategekebwa mu ggwanga lya South Africa. Omutendesi Vicente Del Bosque ku luno yalonze abazannyi 30 kyokka nga 23 abeetaagibwa bwakubalonda nga 25 May. Netherlands bagenda kuvuganyiza mu kibinja B nga bakirimu. Spain bagenda kuvuganyiza mu kibinja B nga bakirimu ne Netherlands, Chile ne Australia. Abazannyi abalala abalondeddwa kuliko Siza wa Chelsea, David Silva, Alvaro Negredo, Jesus Navas abaguchangira mu Manchester City, Santi Cazorla wa Arsenal, Juan Mata ne David De Gea owa Manchester United. Gabadde mawulire agavudde mu nsiike y'ebyemizannyo. Kati kutuuseko enteebereza y'obudde ey'olunaku olw'enkya.
New Mortin Doom Power Guard. Nothing kills faster and keeps killing for longer. Mortin Doom Power Guard. Nothing kills faster and keeps killing for longer.
Ziriemu n'eddakiika 36 entebereza y'obudde bwetyo ekomekereza NTV akawungeezi webale nnyo okuba ng'obadde naffe kola bwetyo ne ku ssaawa 3 amawulire mu lulimi Olungereza bwe ganaaba gakutuusibwako. Nze Hatimana Lugwa Sekaya tuddemu olunaku olw'enkya weeraba.
NTV, turning on your world.
Program Guide. Last week,
I say they're shopping. Me, I'd be looking to sell.
at what price?
More. Much, much more.
I don't know who you are or how you know these things, but one thing I'm sure of, you're in the wrong job. Here, call me tomorrow at 9 o'clock in the morning. I'd like to hear more from you.
Are you ready for your big break? The East African, understanding the region.
You're watching Morning at NTV.
God's approval should be your standard for success. Well, it's Wednesday. 2 days to the end of the week. Whatever you have set out, I hope that you have definitely tried to succeed at achieving it. It's Brian Mlondo at the rooftop of the Kampala Serena Hotel, where I'll be joined in a couple of minutes by two awesome men, Simon Kasiate and Joel Senyonyi. But at the NTV studios is the beautiful and gorgeous Mabel Kebirunji, and of course our sports guru Isma will be joining us later. This Wednesday, let's get started with the question of the day. Good morning. So yeah, that question is quite simple. Head over to our Facebook page, Morning at NTV. Like the page first, then answer. And of course, Twitter is also available at Morning at NTV. And you can use the SMS platform and send the answer to 6565. Remember, the first 5 respondents will each walk away.
TV, wherever you're watching, whether here in the heart of Kampala or from across the globe, a very warm welcome. We are starting off with the headlines. Members of the NRM League endorse President Yoweri Museveni. A genetic study on the nodding syndrome is underway, and fugitive leader Kony is said to be hiding in Sudanese-controlled areas.
You're watching Morning at NTV.
NRM Youth League have endorsed President Museveni as the sole candidate for the 2016 presidential elections. The announcement has, however, caused a rift among some of the youth members who are in favor of having Prime Minister Mama Mbabazi stand for presidency.
Number one, we have the way we are organized in NRM, and we have hierarchy. So when we are trying to organize the hierarchy here and there to ensure people sit according to their positions, that is not conflict. Moving in one of the corruption reform. So for those who are using the Youth League to divide the NRM, I can assure you that the NRM will continue being very strong, because the youth of NRM support their chairman as the commander-in-chief and the president, and will continue supporting him. As the president, and even 2016 as the sole candidate.
There are many things that we agree on, and there are other things that people don't agree on. If I am standing on my ground, you can't push me. And I'm a person you can't change in a day. I need to understand a lot. Because for me to come up with that idea, it has taken time. Yes, I don't hate President Museveni as the president. I've always talked about internal democracy. And the whole thing is internal democracy.
I told His Excellency, and my colleagues brought me out, the likes of Anite, the Chankwan's resolution was not right, was not necessary, because it has created more harm within our party. I told them, look at the public opinion. Yes, you made your resolution, but what is the reaction of the public? You have seen the reaction.
A genetic study on the nodding syndrome is underway. 10 members of the same family with the nodding syndrome were last Saturday flown to the National Institute of Health in Washington to undergo genetic studies. The ministry officials believe the study will have definitive answers on whether the cause is genetic and why it affects some and not all members of a given family. The report released today on nodding syndrome also registers considerable strides in the control of the condition of the disease, with no new cases since 2012.
The nodding syndrome was first detected in 2009 in Kitgum, Padel and Lamore in the Acholi sub-region. Its cause is still unknown to date. On Saturday, 10 people from a nodding syndrome family were flown to the National Institute of Health in Washington to undergo genetic studies, which they believe will give some answers into research on the probable cause.
Well, it should be seen as one of the weapons we are using to find out the definitive cause and subsequent treatment.
However, the ministry has today released a report on the progress of the nodding syndrome interventions, among which include setting up of 7 treatment centers in Kitgum, Padel, Lamore, Gulu, Lira and Oyam. To date, 3,320 cases of nodding syndrome have been registered and treated, compared to 5,185 cases of epilepsy, the highest recorded in Kitgum and Padel.
Now every effort was being made to handle nodding syndrome like any other disease, to integrate these patients so that they can be handled by all health workers.
With support from partners like World Health Organization and the Carter Center, there has been mass drug administration of ivermectin in the affected districts, with treatment coverage anchored at 70%. Aerial spraying was undertaken along rivers of Pagar, Achwa and Agago.
River dosing will continue until the black flies can no longer be detected.
However, there is still stigma among communities that could blight the success stories. Irene Namialo, NTV.
Fugitive rebel leader Joseph Kony is hiding in Sudanese-controlled areas. That's according to a report released by UN Security Council. Kony is believed to be holed up in a disputed enclave in South Sudan, bordering both Sudan and the Central African Republic.
Kony, the leader of the Lord's Resistance Army, who has been the subject of a massive manhunt and is wanted by the International Criminal Court along with several of his commanders for war crimes including rape and use of child soldiers, is said to be holed up in South Sudan. According to the report, credible sources suggest LRA leader Joseph Kony and senior LRA commanders have recently returned to seek safe haven in Sudanese-controlled areas. According to Invisible Children, an organization aimed at bringing awareness to the activities of the LRA, Kony continues to remain a threat to the region despite signs of a reduction in his strength.
He's at his lowest. He's lost many of his senior commanders. We can't say we are post Joseph Kony. You need to know that there are families, I can give you Northern Uganda, who still have missing children.
The UN report also suggests that senior LRA commanders are hiding in northeastern Central African Republic, exploiting the instability in the country to regroup. Kony waged a brutal campaign against the Ugandan government for nearly 2 decades. The LRA's rebellion sought to remove the government of President Yoweri Museveni and rule the country according to the Biblical 10 Commandments. Since 2008, the LRA has killed more than 2,600 civilians and abducted more than 4,000 people, according to Human Rights Watch. Shiland Wuchire, NTV.
MPs from the Greater North Parliamentary Forum say they will advocate for the deletion of all the stringent clauses in the tobacco control bill that's currently before Parliament. The MPs were speaking in Arua district during the inspection of a multi-billion tobacco processing plant in Vura County. Francis Jingo with this report.
West Nile is the biggest tobacco growing region in the country. Farmers of this treasured cash crop are excited about the establishment of a multi-billion tobacco processing plant in Arua district.
Our children, we don't have another way to get money.
Our school fees was paid out of tobacco production. But at a certain level, we still remain poor.
The plant at Ochoko village in Vura County is the first of its kind. This plant is expected to boost the tobacco industry in the region by employing over 2,000 Ugandans.
But the advantage the people of Arua will have is that they will get rid of middlemen.
But the construction of the tobacco processing plant comes at a time when lawmakers are discussing a stringent bill aimed at regulating smoking.
Look into this bill. Look into this bill, please, carefully. On the way that is presented, it will destroy the industry. I'm a smoker. On the way that that bill is presented, I cannot buy legal cigarettes in Kampala. We grow tobacco because tobacco has got a ready market. The average price of tobacco is 4,000.
I think there are many obnoxious clauses that we have seen that need to be improved in that bill.
Some of the bill's key provisions include a proposal to ban tobacco advertising, promotion, and sponsorship of sporting events. This section is aimed at protecting the public from messages that induce and entices people, especially the youth, to consume tobacco.
When I smoke it, I relax.
However, some local leaders are warning that much as the investment is set to help farmers, checks should be put in place to deal with its health hazards.
Will it not affect our residents, the people around here?
So let those who are producing tobacco in the farms produce them. And let those who are smoking be controlled.
A study conducted by Munago Hospital in 2008 showed that 75% of the patients with oral cancer had a history of smoking. Activists against smoking say about 13,500 people in Uganda die of tobacco-related illness annually.
If tobacco, which has been in existence for the last 100 years, was responsible for miscarriages, will these men and women be alive? Will they be alive?
Currently, the tobacco industry contributes over 100 billion shillings to the country's coffers annually. Research indicates that 3 million Ugandans grow tobacco, the majority of whom come from West Nile.
What will be our benefit as to West Nile districts?
This plant has a production capacity of 4 metric tons and is expected to process tobacco from the entire West Nile region, South Sudan, and the DRC. Jingo Francis, NTV.
Thank you for that report. And that's all we had for you in the news this morning. We shall cross over to Simon, Joel and Brian for the press review. Simon, what do we have on the back page of today's Daily Monitor?
Well, a very good morning and thank you, Mabel. Indeed, we are coming to you live from the rooftop of the Kampala Serena Hotel. And indeed, like you asked me about the last page of the Daily Monitor, we've got the all-time Australian tennis great Margaret Court, who is in the country and bringing with her some tremendously good news. Good news in the sense that she plans to open up an academy in Uganda, and good news on the other side that she is now one of those very strong evangelical gospel crusaders. So it's good news all the way for Margaret Court, who is in Uganda at the moment. The 14th day of May 2014, it's a bright sunny Wednesday morning, rays of gold sparring in from the sky from the eastern part of where we are seated right behind us. And yes, it's the program's morning press review. And yes, with me, I'm joined by Brian and Joel. Good morning, good men.
Good morning, Chief. How are you?
Very good. So we're waking up to this incredibly interesting headline coming in from Parliament of Uganda, where members of Parliament have passed that bill that will make men test for HIV. We're talking about the HIV Prevention and Control Bill or something like that. That has now come into, be passed by Parliament, only waiting for the President's signature. What's your quick take?
Of course, the biggest one has been the one of intentional spread, whereby that can only be
Clause 41.
if you know your status for that matter. But there's many other things in the bill. Men being forced to test if your wife is expecting. Of course, she is required to test, but they're coming up to say, look, these men too should test. So that.
But that has been going on for a long time.
That is if the woman knows which man is responsible for her pregnancy.
Well, most of the time
they do know.
But for me,
so if your wife is pregnant, she's not really enthusiastic in having you test. Possibly she's pushing it somewhere.
For me, my concern is, making people test. At the end of the day, no matter how many laws we bring, you will not force anyone to test.
I thought the catchword here was VTC, voluntary.
Yeah, voluntary
and counseling.
Voluntary.
But of course, these politicians do forget very quickly. In 2005, I remember that there were some trumped-up charges over one of these opposition politicians over the issue that he had infected somebody with HIV and AIDS through rape and all that. They forget that they are passing legislation that may be used as fodder for any other person who wants to fight or machinate against them. And well, I hope that maybe this is a sign of changing times, that now politicians have become so selfless that they are willing to pass legislation that will bite them to the hardest core.
I think they are between a rock and a hard place. There are people who intentionally spread HIV and AIDS. We need to find a way out. Whether or not this remedy is a situation
how many people? Let's look at some numbers.
If they intentionally spread HIV and AIDS through rape, they can be handled by the law against rape. If they do it through defilement, they can be handled through defilement or aggravated defilement.
Somebody yesterday was saying,
but if they have consensual sex, I mean, really, many people do have conjugal relations with people they have no idea. I mean, someone tells you, I have been sleeping with this person, but I do not know their second name.
Wake up in the morning, you're like, who is this?
Such a person, even if you told them just before that you are HIV positive or negative, it may not necessarily register in their mind. All they want is a quick fix and they move on.
Right.
Without a doubt. I do not know. Somebody yesterday was telling me that they should also begin criminalizing intentional acquisition of HIV.
Well, there is that too, and I think that will be our big discussion, the big story before you forget.
I want us to go back to how we did it at the time when the infection rate was brought down to 4%. What were we doing?
Man,
were we criminalizing HIV?
The AIDS then was so terrible, someone will argue that you just sniffed it and the next moment you are generating. I mean, people would see you, diagnose you and positively attribute the HIV virus on you by physical looking. But nowadays, you find people who are looking as healthy as you and I, but they are carrying with them a high load of virus.
Let's go back to the basics. You can't criminalize a disease, literally. You can't.
Well, that's the argument that we'll be making on the big story when we host a legislator and an activist, so that we can see how best this can come out. But of course, the pressure is on, and we hope that the President possibly uses his magnanimous lenses of wisdom to ensure that possibly he signs into law a bill that, or a law that will, serve both interests of those who are for and those who are against. But further into the development of this moment.
At Yambi. And related to that, you remember the young people within the NRM that have been quibbling over pennies? They did run to the President. And
pennies, or they were quibbling over Mbabazi and him?
Reconciled them. Well, depending on which
side. So the word reconciliation could have otherwise been replaced by the word pay.
In Kasiate's words. But look, this was bound to happen. At some point it was going to happen. They will call these young people together. Whatever happens, whether he talks to them as their grandfather or pays them, like you say, irrespective, this was bound to happen.
My good friend Adam Luzinda should be in position to tell us exactly what this reconciliation will entail.
Luzinda, actually. And the red paper here says NRM, what they did, they abused Museveni in the meeting.
The youth?
Yes. And your good friend Luzinda said, I'm the one you've been reading about. It's true, I'm from Babazi. We want you out. Because at 30 years, you have done your part.
So does that tantamount to an abuse?
It's true. We shall defeat you in 2016. And Honorable Mbabazi is my candidate. It's true I have been promoting his candidate all over the country because it's not a crime as far as I'm concerned.
Again, I want to ask I want to ask you, does that merit an abuse? If someone tells you the brutal honesty that you, Molondo, after 15 years on the same set of morning at NTV, we are promoting another young talent and we should defeat you and put you off the set, would that amount to
I think they did direct translation because you see in Uganda,
if he says you are a super president,
but his own candidate was a super minister not so long ago. Anyway, that is it, playing out in the NRM quarters where we have youth and those claiming to be youth playing around, and all of this playing around the Chankwanzi resolution to have a sole candidacy. We're talking about abuses and tussling it out. Yesterday, ministers almost tussled it out at Parliament when one was accusing the other over the delayed salaries for civil servants of the month of April, which now we are 14 days long after.
Wow.
Opposition politicians tell Kenya to drop proposed tax on mobile phones. We did make a little noise about
I don't know why they did capture this from us. They should have said more. The press review crew did tell Ekanya and showed him the middle finger. So clearly.
So he did through our calls, eh?
I think now that's very good. It seems that these politicians sometimes wake up to watching some very interesting programming, which is our show, and I'm glad that they did take this up seriously. But of course, let's not forget that many of them could be doing it for their usual grandstanding schemes of showing that they are so magnanimous and they feel for the ordinary Ugandan, when at the end of the day they are the rich that this country is suffering from.
Right. Simon, this should be very good news for you, or actually bad news. The Red Pepper on page 5 has a huge feature on Michael Bloomberg, the mayor of New York, and the former mayor, who has invested heavily in killing the tobacco industry in Uganda, 1.5 billion shillings.
At the end of the day, smoking like prostitution is here to stay. And all I can tell you is that now what is going to happen, you're going to have behind the scenes, under the carpet kind of transaction that will increase illicit trade in tobacco, because now bona fide smokers may not be able to partake
which
of
shouldn't
their
happen
product.
because we are saying it should be regulated. I think that's what the bill is all about. People out there are disingenuously spreading lies that it is about banning tobacco, smoking and that kind of thing. No, it is regulation. But Bloomberg is an interesting man.
If he could not save himself from them, from his tribulations in Toronto, wherever he is, does he think that he can manage even to change anything? You see, I don't want this exaggerated sense of self-worth of these tourists who come from Nether and come here and think they can make anything. To live a decent life in Toronto, you think he can live a decent life in New York? I can tell him he would never win an election in a small little village called Bugangari in the Rift Valley.
Where was he? He was not born there.
That's what I'm telling you. But let him not think that he can transplant his nonsense anywhere and bring it Simon.
So Obama keeps running here now. Is looking for I don't know. Obama is in Nigeria.
What has it?
Was he born here?
No, okay, fine. I think he found Connie, and they review me. They
found the counter suit.
So is Connie, like the Cuban leadership, is going to outlive so many American philanthropist presidents? So let them not have this exaggerated sense of self-worth. That's why I keep telling you here. There are certain things, leave matters of generals, as they say. Certainly leave Uganda matters to Uganda.
The money that Bloomberg sends is used to mobilize the media to talk as much as it can against it.
I have been positioning myself as one of those media practitioners who should get this money, because I am one of those.
But you can't get money. You are.
No, I mean, it is the sick that deserve a doctor. It is those that are strongly against this that should be bribed to be pro it.
Yeah, I should be positioning himself like some of us NRM youth are making noise. We are from Babazi.
So please, Mr. Bloomberg, Lord Mayor of Toronto, if there is anyone that you should give money that has got some kind of leverage in this part of the world, please bring that money to me. I also would love to live.
And then you change your mind. Then you will see the light.
Absolutely, and of course, you know what that will follow. Who wouldn't want to ride in a G55 AMG? I keep telling you about.
Okay. We are forced to sign this deal, says Salva Kiir. This guy is a big joker, I think. Even looking at the man, with all due respect,
insulting anyone whose initials are SK. They are few distinguished SKs.
Salva Kiir, Simon Kasiate,
Sam Kutesa. Let's stop there.
I tell you, with due respect, he is a sitting president, but I don't think he's a very serious man. I mean, even looking at the man, he does not exude this aura of a president. The other day he was, crying foul. You see, I'm the president of South Sudan. I should be left to be president in this position. And the man here says I was forced to sign this deal.
And I'd like to echo what you're saying, because who asked him to get on the plane? Did he think he was going to have dinner in Ethiopia?
Well, from the start of this, they were going to Ethiopia to sign a peace deal, period. And then you're told you are under duress. What's that nonsense?
Well, he says that, I mean, the Ethiopian Prime Minister said, if you don't sign this thing, I'm going to arrest you from me. And being the coward that he is.
Desperate.
Well, I do not think that a coward would lead a country as lawless as South Sudan. But anyway, yes,
really
about USA and how much of a help they have been to this part of the world. Indeed, thank you, United States of America. Now, so much so that we have sent some patients with the notorious nodding disease to the US so that they can be tested and taken through all sorts of tests for us to be able to decipher exactly what is the cause of this debilitating disease that has ravaged most parts of northern Uganda, the nodding disease. It is, and it's a story in the Daily Monitor this morning.
You know this man, Tamara Mirundi, the president's press secretary, he on opposition's call for electoral reform, this guy says, I do not see how one can clean an already clean shirt. You know, I've said it on this show before that Tamara Mirundi is one man, I think, who shoots first and aims later. The other day was calling voters of Luero, Sijui prostitutes and that kind of thing. And I was thinking, what is wrong with this man who... Anyway, let me stop there.
Well, you have seen them strutting wonderful cut Italian, Chinese, or even British suits in town. These are people we call lawyers, but well, don't think it's an easy vocation to get into. As we wake up to a headline in the Daily Monitor that says 70% fail Makerere law pre-entry examination. So clearly getting into the law class at any public university, and very specifically Makerere University, has become as easy as the proverbial camel going through the eye of a needle.
The other day I heard that you see there are two kinds of lawyers. There are those who know the law and those who know the judge. Just saying.
Well, in the Observer, the Tri-Weekly this morning say 2016 race is already at a glance, Simon. Newcomers listed. Who's set to return? Katolu Bwama is in the race also.
Wants to seat this man.
Aren't we seeing two comedians replacing each other?
But this one is more of a comedian. Anyway, he's our good friend. The other day he sat in for us.
For you, regardless, Katolu was here sitting in for you. He put up a very good show. Are you trying to say that the kind of formidable English presentation he put up on this show, he would not present it in the other's house? Or his English would be as good as my Luganda if I were appointed to a Ruchi.
And there's been a huge debate about entertainers joining politics. Is this good? Should we see now another brand of people that...
I mean, who is not a comedian in that August house? I mean, there was a time that we had formidable legislators that you know, when they spoke, people listened to them. The Honorable Eddie Karuhanga, the Honorable Ben Wacha, the Honorable Cecilio Guan. I mean, this is a breed of leaders, and I'm not really being euphoric to the past, but now when you ditto that with the Honorable Member of Parliament from Barra Municipality, Dr. Medad Bitecherezo, I mean, he's my very good friend.
What's his name?
Clearly, I am always at pains understanding exactly what he's trying to say. And for me, whatever he says would make a very nice script for comedy.
What problem do you have with Bitecherezo?
I don't have a problem with him. I mean,
is it because he stands against the tobacco issue?
Do I have to have a problem with you?
It doesn't have to be personal. It could be, you know, in the way he does.
Yes, I don't find him coherent. I find it difficult to understand him. And yet I want to believe that I'm one of the most understanding Ugandans.
You think so?
I understand very quickly after a long explanation. But clearly you can see that many of these legislators...
He probably should give you a very long explanation.
Simeon Subuga is also vying to come...
we are working under the assumption that your viewers still remember Simeon Subuga. People do have a very short memories span.
They're not like you who understands very quickly.
So who is Simeon Subuga?
He was PRO of the police.
He did a very good job.
You think so?
Yeah, I think he would be a good politician.
Why? Because also his antics were not as gentlemanly as Enanga's. He also bordered on comedy. So you can see that clearly. We are moving into a parliament that is going, for the most part, spend more time entertaining us as opposed to putting in place proper legislation. Even the one that we have today, even when they are putting up a legislation, it is anti this, anti the other, ban this, ban the other, and at the end of the day, tax mobile phone handsets. Anyway, that's our purpose.
A very good friend Judith Narakoba is also in the contest, so we shall see.
You see, there have been those rumors. Could it be why she was actually thrown out of
that important
and she's now in charge of MDD in police?
Well, you must know that police has one of the most formidable music, dance, and band departments. The director of music
MDD within police. These guys are meant to keep law and order. But anyhow, she was promoted. I'm sure she earns better, but she's still in charge of MDD.
The Daily Monitor is waking up to an editorial that is asking the country to enforce Kiswahili as a national language. And so there we have it.
You see that happening?
Not have, Well, I mean,
interestingly, Ugandans are quite ambivalent to this Swahili thing. They do not seem to like the language. I am actually learning Swahili currently, Swahili and French. But
really?
Oh yes.
Alliance Français?
Not there. I'm with friends of ours, and
I should go and learn some French.
You should, without a doubt.
So I should sign up really and be serious. But
so you're also a comedian.
You heard of something about teaching an old dog new tricks and.
I am a fluent speaker of German. Fluent speaker. So when I talk
totally
about
different from Swahili,
Swahili is a language for thieves, so I wouldn't learn that.
I am a very, very good imbiber of Guinness. That does not mean that I like milk equally.
Mashar says Kir cannot control the UPDF.
But he cannot control his own forces in South Sudan. How can he control we here in Uganda? I mean, our forces that have been deployed down there.
Well, away from the politics and the geopolitics and the fightings here and there, and of course the comedy parliament, let's look at harvesting money. Seeds of gold in the Daily Monitor. That's your usual pull out that gives you insights on how to make the land on which you are standing or sleeping to earn you some money. And of course you've got the Homes magazine that tells you ways and means of having yourself that dream home, be it from the beautification, from the setting up to the financing. All this is in the Daily Monitor this morning. What do we have in the Observer Sport or in the inside pages of the Observer?
Well, in the inside pages of the Observer, we see a focus on the child. Bone infection almost cost Jonah his leg, and I guess that talks about the ability of our health system to detect some of these things and diseases that you can catch on early. But do we have that capacity? A child with, you have to wait until 18 years when the disease has taken its final stages, and then you rush the kid to the hospital.
Well, the Daily Monitor is running a campaign, a series of stories that are looking into the justice system of the country. And in Monte Justice Campaign, there is an analysis today why our prisoners are choking on congestion. Well, from an onset, you may think, well, it's simple. You guys are committing more crime than the prison facilities can handle.
But it's because our judicial system is limping. We have a huge backlog. There are some of these people that have never appeared before a magistrate or anybody of the sort. They are behind bars. Some of them are innocent. It is not right.
Some of them also can't afford legal, aid. So.
Or some of them are in there because they have no other alternative. They cannot live the harsh existence which we live in here in the free world, because food is expensive, clothing is expensive, shelter is expensive, and they get all this for free.
So when they're about to be released, they say, I still want to be in here. And they say, no, here it's criminals. Then it slaps the prison warder.
Absolutely. So oil companies are also winding up their exploration expedition, and it is in the business section of the Daily Monitor this morning. So what does that mean when they wind up exploration? Shall we now begin sipping the oil out of the ground? Hopefully. That's the story. You should obviously be incentive enough for you to get yourself a copy of the Daily Monitor this morning. Sports in the Daily Monitor. There is an interesting, of course, countdown to the Brazil 2014 FIFA World Cup, and of course many other stories both in the local and international football.
Uganda will be playing this Saturday against Madagascar in the qualifiers.
I hope we beat them.
Yeah, I hope. Isma,
we always play extremely very well when it doesn't really matter, and when it actually does matter, we certainly will lose even the smallest of
teams. Calculating.
Well, we have a good coach, and the team is coming, together slowly. So Isma will be telling us more about the chances we have this time round.
Well, and like I did tell you, we've got a tennis legend that is in the country, Australian Margaret Court, who is in the country to bring good news in the sense that she intends to set up an tennis academy in the country, and also good news the fact that she is also now an evangelical minister who is in the business of redeeming souls from bondage of satanic and bad behavior.
You say it's so sarcastic.
Dude, you sound like a... You can make a good pastor.
No, I am an incredibly very good pastor. Now let's look over to Mabel, who possibly has got a huge cache of news coming in from the international scene. Mabel, what's taking place on the international scene that we've been unable to catch in our local newspapers?
Well, thank you very much, Pastor Simon Kasiate. On the international scene on Reuters, we have Nigeria showing a willingness to negotiate with Boko Haram rebels. And moving on to CNN, Magic's advice for Sterling. Now, this is a story we have been talking about all this week and last week, and it just gets better. Yesterday, we saw Donald Sterling saying Michael Johnson really was not a good man. He got AIDS and he's not doing much for the black community. And today, Magic is saying, I feel sorry for the man. It's sad. It really is. I'm going to pray for this man. He also goes on to say that if he did want to buy a club, it would be the Los Angeles Lakers and not the Clippers. Clearly, we have not seen the end of this. And also making news on CNN, we have 6 Ukrainian soldiers being killed in an ambush, and this is one of the deadliest fighting we have seen, the hugest loss to the Ukrainian Defense Ministry. And moving on to Sky News, Turkey mine blast, 201 people are feared dead and the toll may rise. There is a battle here to rescue hundreds of miners trapped underground as relatives wait anxiously at the surface for news, and this happening in Turkey. On the BBC Africa page, we have the Kenyan police banning buses with tinted windows. It is believed that the police will be able to spot terrorists easier if the windows of the buses are clear. We do know Nairobi has suffered, Kenya has suffered early this month with a couple of bombs. And on a sad note, a French journalist, Camille Lepage, who has been killed in the Central African Republic. She was a photojournalist, and some of her work has featured widely in the media. And yeah, her body was found with some of these rebels. Our thoughts are with her family. And that's all we had for you. Morning at NTV does continue.
That is going to be seriously debated about. We should not get involved in it as a nation. And it shall be used all over the place. There's a person who is going to rise up. Pray for the Minister of Health. His life is preserved. In the name of Jesus. Our nation is actually a hindrance, is actually the whole gay thing. The debate is going to rise again.
Mr. Krabs, are you ready to party?
I like to move it, move it. I like to move it, move it. I like to move it, move it. You like to move it, move it.
Wow! Hello, fellow motor enthusiastics.
Mr. Krabs,
isn't there any way for us to return all of them back to normal?
Hey! How'd he do that?
The Red Ranger's a bigger problem than I thought!
It's time to finish this thing up!
What can I do to make them love me again?
What are you drawing, Kitty?
Mega Rangers? Yeah! That's a mega win!
Hello? King Julian, you are truly inspiring. Ow! SpongeBob,
Kampala has been voted in the past as one of the favorite cities for tourists, one of the most peaceful cities. That is something that is changing.
Kale Kaihura, the Inspector General of Police, and President Yoweri Museveni, their alliance, they can only crack down or stop individual strikes and individual demonstrations. But I don't think they can stop the growth of militancy.
No holds barred.
Besigye and Lukwago have particular grievances against the government, some legitimate, some misguided. What should the police do? Of course, the police has to intervene, A, to protect the power of President Yoweri Museveni and the NRM from disruption by Besigye and Lukwago, but B, also, never forget this, to protect those ordinary people whose property gets destroyed.
I want to ask that many think that they've actually been frustrated.
Opposition parties in Africa do not tend to be constructed around policy differences. FDC lacks a glue to hold its coalition of different power-hungry individuals together.
Incisive.
You see, the NRM is more divided internally than the FDC. The advantage with the NRM is it has political power.
Analytical.
I think that one of the best organized political parties in Uganda is the PPP, the People's Progressive Party with Ansari. This idea that everybody is peddling around the world that Africans are poor and they cannot contribute to their own political and social emancipation is crap. In fact, I think that the opposition parties in Uganda have to win an election in an unfair and unleveled ground.
Newsnight with Andrew Mwenda.
Running out of airtime can happen to anyone. The next time you recharge, simply dial *161# to get going again.
On the next episode of Login,
this week on Login, we have lots of amazing stuff in stock for you, like
Yes, darling, you're so wonderful.
Vino Lodge opening in Arua. The third edition of Doa Doa. And the Street Jam featuring DeMarco. All these Wednesday 7:30 p.m.
Login.
At Orange, we know that running out of airtime can happen to anyone. That's why we bring you Wetase. Simply dial *161# to get going again. Convenience changes with Orange. Today changes with Orange.
You're watching Morning at NTV with Simon Kasiate, Mabel Kebirunji, and Brian Mulondo.
Welcome back from the break. Remember, you can be part of the show by following us on Twitter, Facebook, or sending an SMS to 6565. We now turn over to Simon, who is at the rooftop for today's big story. Simon, whom do we have today and what are you talking about?
Well, today we are discussing the emotive HIV and AIDS control bill. Is it called that? Yes, I have a copy of it here, and with me you've got a legislator and an activist lawyer, all of whom are going to sit here and break it down for us on whether it's a good legislation with great challenges or it's a bad legislation with even more great challenges. So today is going to be a ping pong, and of course we'll be looking even closely at that clause which is 41, that the whole entire bill has been reduced to the criminalization of transmission of HIV and AIDS, and that for me is very important, and that is something that many Ugandans ought to sit back on their seats and at least brave these next 20 minutes as we break down on the big story here. The HIV and AIDS Prevention Control and Control Bill 2010, and yes, that's what we're discussing this morning on the big story. My name is Simon Kasiate. Now, according to Uganda's Health Ministry, in 2012, AIDS indicator survey, an estimated 1.5 million Ugandans were living with HIV/AIDS. There are at least 140,000 new infections annually, including 28,000 from maternal to child transmission. Now, Uganda's HIV policies over the last decade have been emphasizing abstinence only for the youth and marital fidelity for the married. Now, combined with punitive laws against sex workers and homosexuals, these approaches are felt by many to have increased the stigma and discrimination around HIV and AIDS and discouraged more people from being tested and treated. Now here we are at this particular time, Parliament passing, which they did yesterday, the HIV and AIDS Prevention and Control Bill 2010. The million-dollar question is it the right law at the right time? Will it give us the desired outlook? And so I will start from this time breaking the rules a little bit, going to the legislator who will tell us the spirit under which this was passed in Parliament. Good morning and welcome to Big Story, Dr. Chris Bariomus.
Good morning, Simon, and good morning, viewers.
You have been at the fore of many of these legislations that have the word ban, control, and all that. But now let's look at very specifically the HIV and AIDS Prevention and Control Bill 2010.
Yes.
What is the spirit under which this Parliament passes this bill?
Yeah, thank you very much. You know, we've been having the problem of HIV and AIDS for the last 30 years or so. And when you look at how countries have managed HIV/AIDS, there are countries which began by legislating before they even know what works and what doesn't work in fighting HIV/AIDS. In Uganda, a deliberate decision was taken to first implement interventions to fight HIV/AIDS, gain better understanding, document lessons, so that we can legislate later. And that's why we are coming in with a law over 30 years after having HIV and AIDS. And we did think as members of Parliament that at the stage where we are in the HIV/AIDS response, that having a law will be a very progressive step in terms of supplementing the other efforts. And that's why the HIV and AIDS Committee of Parliament, of the 8th Parliament, thought it wise to draft this private members bill so that we can supplement the efforts of all the stakeholders who are fighting HIV/AIDS. So to us, it's a very progressive step to complement what is going on with the law, and we hope this will help in reversing the rising trends of HIV infection in Uganda.
Well, there we have it from the legislator. Now let's hear from Dora Chichoncho Musinguzu, who's the executive director of Uganet. She is a social justice lawyer working on health, gender, and rights. Good morning, Dora.
Good morning.
Dr. Chris here seems to wax lyrical about the importance of this bill coming in at this time, but people from where you come from don't seem to agree entirely that this law will serve the purpose for which Chris is talking about, that it will serve reducing the trend of infection and, of course, protecting the otherwise vulnerable young people who may fall into the trap of being infected intentionally. What's your take from where you sit?
Yeah, definitely, I agree. We all know that the law is not only about HIV transmission. Actually, from the naming, it is the HIV Prevention and Management Act now as it is. So if it is prevention and management, it is encompassing many things. It is encompassing giving responsibility to every Ugandan. It is providing for more comprehensive counseling and testing. It is providing now for more stern obligations to government to provide funding for HIV treatment.
Especially so really, in the wake of reduced donor funding.
Yes, for sure. So in a way, really, we are not entirely saying that this is a useless law. And we would like to thank them for the leadership that they really provided to say that probably law can be a contributor. But also we are very strong on saying that this bill is going to be a detractor in several other ways. One is that up to this day, Ugandans who have tested and know their status are 33%. Meaning that a whole 67% of Ugandans have not taken that courage to take that
blissful ignorance, looking at their faces saying, I think I am
I look well, I don't think I'm positive. So for us, we want to believe that the frustration of us not making it well in HIV, most of it is being transmitted by these people who have not tested. They don't know and they've not been tested. They've not been able to take that step. So what would be the best situation is encourage these people to test without telling them that there is a possibility of extra burdens of legal prosecutions thereafter if you've not changed behavior. Unfortunately, HIV/AIDS is not as easily managed as any other situation. Behaviors have not yet since changed. We still have a challenge of really getting Ugandans to take full responsibility. So if we are struggling to have a big number tested, and then we now put a law to say if you test, this could be used against you, because section 41 and 39
exactly, which I have here with me.
Yes, it only applies to a group of people who know their status. So if you don't know and you transmit, that's okay. But if you know and you transmit, that is a problem. You see, definitely it is well intended, as you can see
that the same section 41 is not as draconian as you want to put it here. It says a person shall not be convicted of an offense under this section if, one, the person was aware of their status, and informed their if the person was aware of the accused status and still went ahead and provided sexual services from which she or he contracted HIV and AIDS. So it's not as bad that if I am HIV positive, I let you know about it, but you nonetheless think that it is important for us to have sexual intercourse, and along the way you contract it.
No, that's not what it is, my brother.
No, I don't know whether it's written in Spanish, but this is what I'm
you're looking at part 2 of the at 2. This is the exception of 1. 1 reads, any person who willfully and intentionally transmit HIV to another person commits an offense.
And what's wrong with that?
Now that sounds okay for sure, and you see from the start, we were never saying
because we
that
have lawyers in this country, people who say, well, I did not pick it up from a tree, I can as well transmit it to other people.
Simon,
why shouldn't such people
that provision,
be sorted out by this provision?
First of all, let me explain that misunderstanding. That provision is not targeting those who have tested positive or negative. It is saying, if I know my HIV status and I'm positive, and now I develop a criminal mind, so that I will not die alone, let me infect others.
But you see, now, Dr. Christian, that's why I have also a problem with you. It sounds very good. But you see, I'm looking at the implementation of this law. For example, how are you going to prove beyond reasonable doubt in a court of law with a competent bench that this person actually knew, developed a criminal mind, and went out on a spread crusade? They went bonkers and started spreading this. Are you able to effect this? Because we're putting in place very wonderful laws, but their implementation is one of those things that is
first of all, establishing that you knew your status, that is very easy. You should have tested from
the record when you tested. Is a problem.
I don't even think that those records are kept anywhere. You know that, Dr. Chris.
From the law, probably it's going to start to be documented.
They're there. Perhaps you test from somewhere.
You, Dr. Chris, I don't know whether you have your baptism certificate.
Few
people have their baptism certificates. You see them running over Nkuruma Road at the time of getting another sacrament, which
that
requires
is
you to have had.
The question which we must address is that if I am HIV positive and I know, and I don't take reasonable steps to protect the person I'm having sex with, isn't that criminal?
It is, and we agree.
So
but how many of these? You see, we are trying to look at how enormous the problem of HIV is, and knowing that he has really actually said that for the last 30 years, it has not been an easy way. Everybody has been trying to find a solution, and it has not been as easily evident, like now saying that we will put a law maybe to take us another 5 steps forward. But now, look, the challenge there is that HIV is still transmitted as it were 30 years ago. And we've not managed to find a critical solution. Will law be the great miracle that is going to do this for us?
Yes, perhaps not. And this is why I want to ask
make a contribution right in the fight against
sexual legislation, for me, I find it very difficult. And I use the word sexual legislation because it's about sexual matters. Many people, when they get into the situation where they are going to have conjugal, relations, at this point in time, man and woman, and I want to insist on along that line, is that they all agree that each of them has certain follies, and they choose to ignore them for the sake of this. We've seen people who know, who have declared publicly that they are HIV positive. They pick up new spouses. And some of them have gone around telling how they are positive, their spouses are discordant with them, they have children who are negative, and all this. By the time the spouse accepts to have sexual intercourse with a person to sire a child, that means they're willing, they have given up all the guard that they are ready to take on whatever circumstances may come along with this sexual intercourse, which means they can also easily get infected. Now, if someone is willing to let down their guard in the name of love, they are willing to sacrifice themselves, how then will you turn the other person that has infected them into a criminal? Isn't that something that, because at this point you are legislating with the head, but matters of love are matters of the heart. And these two things, there's not enough blood to run them at the same time. At least I know that for a fact.
We are saying even when love is a question of the heart, you must remain responsible. Because the question of evidence, because first of all there will be a complainant.
There is a lot of responsibility that cannot be taken into account when especially you're dealing with a blind situation.
And you see, to go back to that is where we're having a mismatch of what we are trying to do in the HIV sector.
Maybe I should ask the legislator here, yes. How much consultation did you make, especially for this particular time, with people like her and other activists who are... How much... Yeah,
it has been very deep and wide consultation. Because
and how much of their voices did you take in? Because I know for the last 1 month, there have been campaigns on mass media, social media,
okay, let me answer the
everywhere,
question.
And you seem to be blind and deaf to this message.
The HIV AIDS Committee of Parliament came up with the idea of drafting this bill. We formed a task force which had civil society, which had the Uganda Road Reform Commission, Uganda AIDS Commission, the Ministry of Health, and I was chairing the task force, rather the subcommittee from Parliament, and we had extensive discussions. We had regional consultations at different regional points in the country. From 2010 up to today, we have had public hearings in the Parliament, including civil society. You see, first of all, we should not legislate with the sentiments. The question is, do you have evidence that actually when this provision is passed, it reverses the gains in HIV fights? I have been to countries where actually their laws have this kind of provision, like Tanzania, and they are making a lot of progress. So we don't want to legislate with the sentiments, with emotions, but we want the evidence on the table.
Really. That is very objective.
Yes, what evidence do you have that where they have passed this kind of legislation, there has been a reversal of the gains?
I want to refer you to the global report on the HIV Commission and law. This is a whole commission that took the whole of 2010 and 2011, looking at the global picture. What is the role of the law? And it came out very clearly to say that laws have a very a great contributor. One, in protecting people who are vulnerable.
Without a doubt.
Yes, but there is no evidence whatsoever that law can contribute to slowing down the epidemic.
In other words, law does not deter crime.
No.
I mean, because there has been all sorts of legislation against terrorism.
The public, what is the guidance of UNAIDS on criminalization of HIV in legislation?
UNAIDS says that because people who transmit intentionally are not known to be so many, those are really extreme cases of the people who say, I will not die alone. In such circumstances, country penal codes should be able to take care of that.
And that
is the crime. No,
that's not true.
We can look for it right now.
By the way, but you see also the other hand, I want to believe that this law does protect such people in one way. Unless the person does it through rape or defilement, which is unconsensual sex, that way they can be handled by those very provisions of rape and defilement. But according to the same law here, if someone who knows that they're HIV positive but goes out on a spree to spread, but through telling people and convincing them and having consensual sex, don't you find it a problem where you have to criminalize one party against the other, especially when they've had consensual sex? Because in having sex, you don't disclose everything. Many people tell lies, how they are rich, how they have all sorts of things, how they are very wonderful people, yet they are liars, just to earn themselves some sex.
That shouldn't.
But how can you criminalize?
That is a reality. That is a reality, not that we should promote it. Whatsoever, it is not good for anybody to transmit HIV to anyone. You see, that we agree knowingly. But you see, we want to believe that people who are well counseled, who have received the right services, will not go and transmit. At least this is a documented study, even in Uganda, that when people are empowered, they will know what to do. As I've said, the biggest percentage are for people who are transmitting out of ignorance, who we would have gotten.
And who will remain in blissful ignorance because they do not want to have been seen to have known their
status. And that is where we fear that probably that could
some
be
of them
a
may also be thinking that they are HIV positive, yet they are negative, and in their cause to go and spread.
What we are challenging you on, bring the evidence, because countries have passed legislations.
But you see, Chris, my problem is that many times we as legislation, as a country, we always want to jump on a bandwagon and say, if it is working in Singapore, it's working in Uganda. If it's working here, it is working here. So we jump and carry out legislation which we are unable, or our circumstances at home are unable to fulfill, or we duplicate what we already have in the past.
So why do you also jump on the bandwagon that will not work? What evidence do you have?
No, for sure, let me tell you this. According to what we are being guided right now by the Ministry of Health and by the Uganda AIDS Commission, that the #1 principle is every Ugandan should take care of, they should be responsible for their lives. Everybody should make sure that they prevent HIV, the positive and the negative alike. You see? But right now, this one is... No, it's not the spirit of the law, because here
now, Dora,
the positive are going to be protecting the negative.
Away from that clause 41 that seems to be
there is also a provision which
and 39. Now, Chris, just hold it there.
Yes.
Now, we're looking at this part of the law that says 2% of taxes accrued from beer, spirits, water, and other bottled beverages will be sent directly into a fund that will be under the Ministry of Health. We know the kind of ministries that we have in this country, and very specifically Ministry of Health. And we also have the pedigree and history to show how Ministry of Health has managed, or should I say mismanaged, funds meant for HIV, AIDS, tuberculosis, and the like. How can you trust Dracula to keep hold of a blood bank? Aren't we seeing money coming directly to a ministry like Health?
So do you want the money to be taken to Lake Victoria?
No, I'm just, no, let's come to Dora here. What trust do you have that the way the Ministry of Health is set up, the way government ministries are set up, sending them money directly for this money will actually go to do exactly what it's meant to do?
We agree that we've seen challenges in the past of fund management, but the starting point is that we are happy, at least for the first time, that Uganda is going to mobilize its local resources to deal with this problem, you see. But the issue of governance and management, I think that remains a very big job for us in the next few days. What would have really been the ideal is for it to be managed in an independent trust. You see, when you're the same person that is procuring and you're the same person that is managing, as we've seen really from the history of the cases that we've seen, there are challenges of governance, of accountability, of transparency. But we hope this time round that there will be an extra effort to put regulations for the trust fund to make sure that where it goes, it is able to achieve its purpose.
Chris, how do you come up with the 2%? Couldn't it have been 10% or even 15% or even 50% or even 1%? And why specifically go in for beers, spirits, water, and other bottled beverages?
Yes, first of all, you see, we've come a long way. And when you look at the funding of HIV/AIDS in Uganda, up to 80% plus is from the development partners, the donors. And you know the threats, some of this financing is not predictable, and some of this financing goes to areas which are non-priorities for the country, and we think we must have our own resources which are predictable, which we can direct to priorities.
2%, why? Why not 10%? Why not 16%?
Well, of course, we're looking at the national budget, how much URA collects, and we thought if we limit it to 2%, we can raise reasonable amounts of money. But also we are provided for other areas where we can get this money, so that we can have a specific fund that can be used to cater for HIV/AIDS. And also we specifically said this money should be for purchase of ARVs and also counseling and testing kits. We don't want this money to go for workshops, trainings, and so forth. We just want it to be specifically for service provision. Yes, you may have misgivings about Ministry of Health. That was in the past, but we must make progress. We think the Ministry of Health will have to develop very clear regulations and guidelines, bring on board other actors, but there is no problem with the Ministry of Health, since the areas where this fund is going to be used, ARVs, testing and counseling, the areas under the Ministry of Health. So
Uganda has been a trailblazer in the fight against HIV and AIDS through openness, transparency, and of course speaking it as it is and giving citizens information, to the point perhaps even of information fatigue. We've seen the three-legged stool of abstinence, faithfulness, and all the use of condoms. All this in place, and it has been working tremendously very well.
That's a great point.
To what extent does this law buttress this kind of effort? Because some arguments have been that perhaps this legislation does break one of the legs of the three-legged stool, and you know what happens when you break one leg of a three-legged stool? The stool will never be stable.
No, this is a comprehensive legislation which definitely picks on the lessons which we have learned over time, and still accommodates all those different approaches: abstinence, faithfulness, condom use, use of ARVs, and other measures which we know they work. So we are not disrupting what we know that works.
The Daily Monitor this morning, Dora, does wake up with a screaming headline that finally Parliament has passed a law which will make men test. The bill, the law as it is, will compel men to test.
Yes.
I mean, I'm asking you this question from the point that you are certainly not male, and you are an activist in this who's been for the most part grappling with the fact that males are not testing. We test by proxy. You send her to test. If she's okay, then you certainly assume that you are okay. How do you receive this from a female perspective as a woman? How does this law play into your whims and fancies?
I
asked this question to Dora here.
No.
Then Dr. Chris, I'll come to you.
Okay. I think really also that is. I think it was just meant for purposes of headline. But in clause 14, section 14, where this is routine testing for pregnant mothers, is what it says in the law, and then adds another clause that says pregnant mothers will come along with their partners. Why? Because if we are going to make the program work of elimination of mother-to-child transmission, it is not only the role of a mother, it should be both of them, the partner testing and counseling for support and also actually for the effectiveness of that program. So that is the whole reason I think it is framed in that way.
Dr. Chris, you have any divergent view to that?
No, I agree with her. First of all, the screaming headline is false. We are not going to drag men and take them to clinics and test them. We are saying routine.
Because if you, well, you don't have to drag them, but clearly you know that if you find a woman that is HIV positive, you can always draw it back and she was infected by a man who knew and did it deliberately, and therefore 41 comes into place.
No. What that provision is saying is that all pregnant women, when they present themselves to hospitals and clinics, they will be routinely tested, like we test for syphilis for every woman who comes to a clinic. And also, they should be accompanied by their spouses, their partners, and they should also be routinely tested. This is for purposes of elimination of mother-child transmission, because men are part of that equation. But we are not saying that every man will be go to the street and you are dragged to the hospital and they test you. No.
Well, as we conclude this, I'll just put that to you as a legislator. You see, many Ugandans are always asking themselves, but these members of parliament, what is the urgency in legislating against HIV and AIDS and the moralization of all issues when we have even bigger pressing problems in this country? We've got corruption, we have got brigandage of resources, we've got the absence of infrastructure, we've got all sorts of other pressing problems. Why are they going into some of these peripheral, flimsy things? I mean, can we assume that this was a complete, lack of prioritization of the problems that are bedeviling this country? Maybe you may need to answer to those who think that you as the 9th Parliament or politicians, you seem to always go in to get cheap scores on not very essential points of legislation.
Well, we handle all issues. That's our work as legislators. But anybody who thinks that HIV and AIDS is a peripheral issue, then probably doesn't live in Uganda. HIV and AIDS is a very big problem, and all of us must be concerned. All of us must put our heads together to find solutions. And for us, we thought as legislators, it is our duty to complement what is going on fighting HIV/AIDS with legislation.
Very finally for you, Dora, now your response, but also breaking it down now, which way forward? These members of parliament have said, well, let's pass it, they'll put it before the president, and we can only wait for the president either to heed your call or not heed your call. What way forward for you who are saying that this law needs to be a few nuts and bolts, to be fastened here and there, so that you can have a better law than what it is at the moment?
Yes, as you've rightly said, now the law is going to go before the president for assent. Definitely there is a whole cry of HIV actors. You know, I really didn't agree that this was, it was a consultative process, but where members of parliament had one key intention, even when they said that if you remove these two clauses of attempted transmission and actual transmission, you have killed the law.
So in other words, you're saying that the consultation they do is out of just a mere ritual, but they don't
because they didn't listen. And let me tell you the groups which are aggrieved. The Uganda AIDS Commission really tried enough to advise them, don't do this. They refused. Even Ministry of Health, the AIDS control program, advised against criminalization. This is not only the civil society view. The Human Rights Commission wrote in particular to really give them perspectives of looking at this, to say we all agree there could be exceptional people, the very few cases of people who really want to transmit, but we could handle those in the penal code. We could even strengthen the penal code such that we remove the biting stigma and discrimination that might be caused by a specific criminal law on HIV. So that was not listened to, and that is where we find the disappointment that technical people really have advised.
We are also technical, by the way.
You're very technical, but we could see that so much was driven by moralism. So, Clause 41 was not debated. We were in Parliament. We really wanted to see.
If you're looking for a moral standard, this Parliament is not that. It doesn't have the locus stand. Do you use that word in lawyers? I don't think this this parliament has the locus standi.
Yeah, that could be also another issue. But you know, the emotion was that, you know, a man at my village, we know a person in my village, very angry about that man. We are like, what would really help a man in that village? If only he has not been able to do that, couldn't he be...
Well, now that this all has come to naught, so now...
Way forward.
Yes.
A call to the president to also engage on this particular one. He's been a leader.
People, did not listen to you. You think this one guy is going to listen to you?
President Museveni is very respected on issues of HIV. He was a very one-time leader who did what to do. As rightly Honorable has said, that this law could have come ages, but he really wanted to deal with a problem. If he can find it in himself to really understand the challenges that all these technical people are bringing on forth, then he will not be able to sign it. And
of
then
course,
we
know
hope
that
we shall...
Museveni does indeed listen to technical people, especially when they advise him on matters of health. We saw it recently with the anti-homosexuality bill. Clearly, he wouldn't possibly have put pen to paper if the technical people hadn't advised him. So maybe, hopefully, technical people this time will carry the day and he will possibly make some amends to this law. But whichever way it goes here, we have it. It's
whichever
a law.
way it has come back to Parliament, and Parliament which has the
Parliament.
final say on the law.
Absolutely. So here we have, it's a ping pong, and we can only keep our fingers crossed to see that at the end of the day we get legislation that will possibly move this country great steps ahead, as we have always done in the trailblazing expedients that we've carried out over the years in the fight against HIV and AIDS. Let's take a short break. When we return, it's Simon Says. I did tell you at the beginning of this show that in a recent report, it was indicated, that's coming in from 2012, that we've got about 1.5 million Ugandans living with HIV and AIDS. And this is an estimation because, at least from the statistics we have, about 33% of Ugandans actually know their status from an empirical perspective. The rest of us simply just look around, look at our veins, and assume whether or not we're fine. When we get a flu, we begin to worry. When we wake up on the right side of our beds and we are ready to kick and run around, we believe that we are fine. Now, HIV cannot be fought from a point of blissful ignorance. I want to believe that unless each one of us takes it upon themselves to go out and actually do tests and find out what your status is and regularly update yourself. But of course, there's also an element of behavioral change and also looking at how best you can try to protect yourself. So that at the end of the day, you do not fall under the ambit of Section 41 that will render you a criminal if at all you do proceed, procure sex from somebody and infect them with HIV and AIDS when you knew your status and you did not carry out any protective measure or even disclosure enough. So it's a whole lot of issues that bottom line will render down to the point of moralism. How moral and how responsive are we? How responsible are we to those people whose lives we touch? But let's also not forget that matters sexual are matters of love and affection. If you truly love somebody, you must be able to protect them and ensure that you do not lead them in harm's way. Perhaps maybe I'm wrong. Who knows? This matter of sexual interaction could also be a case of transaction. But at the end of the day, it all comes down to life. You love your life. I don't want to claim to love your life more than you do love yours. I love my life greatly. So each one of us, with the love that we have for our own lives, we should take it upon ourselves to take up all the precautions to do so that we can protect ourselves. Of course, I'm not forgetting the fact that there are many of you who have got the tendency for self-destruction. Well, that is a tendency that maybe, I don't know how spiritual you are, you may need to seek divine intervention to possibly save you from that kind of tendency. That's why we conjugate in cases of suicide and people who simply just wring themselves down. But of course, those are the minority of the human race. The majority of you who are still good people, who still believe in the sanctity of the human race and the propagation of life, I think the ball is certainly not in the MP's court or the activists' courts. It is in each one of us's court. And the collective sum of each one of us playing ball the right way will certainly propel us into a generation of people that will circumvent this scourge of HIV and AIDS. It's a wonderful and sunny Wednesday morning. The program continues here on NTV. But of course, many of you are beginning your day. Keep it productive. And yes, kindly do not infect somebody with HIV and AIDS knowingly. And make sure you don't get infected yourself.
That is going to be seriously debated about. We should not get involved in it as a nation.
And it shall be used all over the place.
There's a rise up. Pray for the Minister of Health. His life is preserved. In the name of Jesus, our nation is actually hindrance, is actually the whole gay thing. The debate is going to rise again.
You can bring everybody in parliament as long as they can wake up and vote for the NRM.
As long as the voters exercise their rights to elect their leaders, there was no need for term limits in Uganda.
I know him. I know how he operates. I know how he thinks.
There are ways you can go around these obstacles.
Why should I conduct myself as if I am Muyai?
It's absolutely true. I admired the President Museveni.
Is the ICC a fascistic code targeting African leaders?
You cannot tell me that the whole trouble Kenya had revolved about only the 2 individuals.
The money is not in the budget of this financial year.
You can't beat God. You see, God is polygamous also. Look at Jeremiah chapter 31.
The security of this country will largely depend on the contribution that the people make.
Are you and I ever gonna have a chance to be sisters?
You want the baby to have my name?
Would that be okay?
So I'm happy you came.
Yes, especially since I thought you were shunning all things Newman. I have my own reasons for showing up.
What did you say about him?
I'm sorry, attempted rape.
Okay, look, whatever you think you know about him, you don't know his heart.
If there is a way to make me feel more miserable, you will instinctively find it.
You gave up the one woman you loved, and now you're having a hard time figuring out how to move on?
I can't imagine who would want to hurt a good man like you.
Okay, you know what? I don't need you telling me how to feel about Lily.
Are you pregnant? No. Then why are you trying to alienate Tyler?
Has something happened between the two of you? Are you afraid that I'm gonna do something to ruin your marriage, or that you will?
Why don't we have a party? I'll bring Nikki and bring your siblings. How's that?
Now, what are you gonna do? You gonna blackmail them this time, or are you gonna bribe them?
Looks like Mommy's not the only one who knows how to make up a story.
Mikwano gyaffe bana NTV ate naddala mu bannaamu muli gw'emizannyo muli gw'ebyemizannyo gukomyewo 2014 ate mutya kati ate gukyusiza n'obudde gwa 7 gwali gwa 9 ne gugoberera ne tusanyuka kati gubongereddeko wano malya g'ebyemisana awo gusooke gubatayize gubaletire buli kintu kyonna kalonda n'ebyemizannyo muli gw'ebyemizannyo mupya 2014 Isima waali alagira Argentina yenjo mukubira eddiba lye omukwano gujja kukomawo ku muli gw'emizannyo naye kasita kinatuuka eri bano ba Messi okulumba abalenzi baffe ba Thiago Silva awo tewali mukwano omuli gw'ebyemizannyo 2014 President.
Hey there, Mr. Krabs! Are you ready to party?
I like to move it, move it. I like to move it, move it. I like to move it, move it. You like to move it, move it.
Wow! Hello, fellow motor enthusiasts.
Oh, Mr. Krabs!
Isn't there any way for us to return all of them back to normal?
Hey! How'd he do that? The Red Ranger's a bigger problem than I thought!
It's time to finish this thing up!
What can I do to make them love me again?
What are you drawing, Kitty?
Hello?
King Julian, you are truly inspiring.
Ow!
Sponge pot! Fantastic!
Ekifo ekimu kissa wamusu n'ekyalo ekiweddeko abamanye bakiraza mumwa. Tugenda kutuuka gy'oli oyogere naffe ebikwata ku kyalo kyo, embeera mw'okolera, ebyobufuzi, ebyobulamu n'ensonga endala nnyingi. Ebyogerwa tebiyita. Tuusa eddoboozi lyo, yogera naffe buli Lwakuna butereevu ku NTV akawungeezi.
running out of airtime can happen to anyone. The next time you recharge, simply dial *161# to get going again.
On the next episode of Men.
When you're in a stable relationship, you need to work things through. Because that's what makes a stable relationship.
The reason many people cheat is that now they are going to even start cheating on the substitute. Because it is about satisfaction. There
are some things you cannot share. So you're either in it or you're out of it.
Absolutely. Yes. Don't you think it's much better, okay, for somebody to say, look, you know what? I mean, honey, this is the way. I cannot wait.
I think that there is some merit in knowing exactly where your man is, knowing who is with.
Let no one blame you for their cheating. Their cheating is their decision.
Men.
At Orange, we know that running out of airtime can happen to anyone. That's why we bring you Wetase. Simply dial *161# to get going again. Convenience changes with Orange. Today changes with Orange.
You're watching Morning at NTV with Simon Kasiate, Mabel Kebirunji and Brian Molondo.
We're glad you're still watching Morning at NTV, and today we celebrate the birthday of George Lucas. He turned 70. If you do not know who he is a film director, producer and screenwriter, more popularly known for the Star Wars films and Indiana Jones. And this gentleman here, people first, you must know him. This is Mark Zuckerberg, and I'm blown away by the fact that he just turns 30. Yes, he turns 30 today, and he's the founder of Facebook. He is worth about $26 billion. And one of the statements he has said, he thinks a simple rule of business is if you do the things that are easier first, you can actually make a lot of progress. Well, happy birthday to the two of them. And we have a message from Isaac. He's sending birthday greetings to Apofia, Chasimide, Arinitwe Amon, Niwan, Diha Odith, and may they go to blow more than 10,000 candles. Now, on to some of your other messages. We have God's Chosen here saying, here in Kabale it's getting Icelandic. Expect the birth rates to be higher since our food basket also looks good. Why shouldn't we also increase the stomach basket? And he says he loves NTV. Bex says, mercy you guys, if my boss fires me, be ready to employ me. I love this show. It's becoming an addiction. And then someone from TBS Moyo says, morning at NTV. We in West Nile love NTV, but our issues and stories are not covered or represented fully. Please, can West Nile be represented? And I must disagree with that. Yes, actually this morning and yesterday we did look at tobacco, and in West Nile we did see, you know, the factory that's going to be there, as well as the MPs, and also the last week, as the last couple of weeks, as West Nile was celebrating 100 years being annexed to Uganda. So I disagree with you. Maybe you should watch TV more often. And to some other messages here, we have Semalulu Emmanuel saying, this 9th Parliament has done nothing apart from spitting rubbish. And Andrew asks, how can they fail to pass out this HIV bill, yet they are all victims? Ooh, that's a big statement to make. Well, we are now crossing over to Brian. Hello, Brian. Do tell us whom you have on for Everyday Life today.
Well, thank you so much, Mabel. And this, you know, the big story this morning, very explosive. This is a very important matter. And Parliament, after passing the HIV/AIDS Prevention and Control Bill, might have maybe forgotten a couple of things to consider. And of course, the discussion here at the rooftop continued even after the live discussion that Kasiate and the guests had. We went on and on about what should be the way forward. A couple of your comments on Twitter about reacting to the big story. And some people saying the current MPs are busy passing weird laws. Let's be prepared for a parliament full of comedians. Wow. Why can't government make counselling a must instead of the hash bill? And that is at innocent_Aki. And at Kim at Kim at Charles 75 saying, this is very right, but we also need to go back to Christ so that we stop being reckless. And at Kabanza _ Isaac saying, a death penalty for anybody caught infecting a person with HIV is what I want. The government took long to work on that. All right, let's continue this discussion and talk about these matters. I also got some feedback from Josh Poru. Thank you so much. And let's continue the discussion. Do you think that actually in the fight against HIV and AIDS, law can effectively address these issues? What did we do right in the past when we fought the infection rate down to 4%? And now it's increasing steadily. What can we do, especially protecting the young people? The Twitter handle is @morning@NTV. Now, these are named after the type of skin cell from which they arise. What are we talking about? We are going to be looking at the prevention of skin cancer this morning with Dr. Malik Sempereza from Unity Skin Clinic, coming up on Everyday Life. Well, Dr. Malik Sempereza joining us this morning. Good morning, doctor.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for coming. You should be probably already performing surgery. And you chose to come and join us.
No, this was more important. Today I didn't have anything scheduled for this morning.
Right.
Yes.
Tell us about Unity Skin Clinic. What exactly do you do? You're a dermatologist.
Yes.
And what do they do?
Unity Skin Clinic is, we're trying to redefine healthcare in terms of skin care in Uganda, and we've tried to bring innovative treatments for skin diseases. So dermatology encompasses the hair, the skin, the nails, and the genitals. So any disease of the hair, the skin, the genitals, and the nails, we cover it. So we provide really comprehensive, world-class treatment for skin care.
Oh,
yes.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Focusing on, skin cancer, there's been lots of features. Focusing on one, I've seen some people asking, do black people get sunburn? So you think, okay. I have an itching all over my body. Is this a skin rash? Is this heat rash? All that stuff. Let's first look at first of all, the definition. I may have given a scanty definition.
Yes.
A definition of skin cancer.
Okay.
What exactly is it?
Well, skin cancer is when you have the cells in your body, on the skin, that become rebel to the body. I usually call them being rebel cells. They outgrow beyond the normal limits of growth, and they start spreading just like any other normal cancer in the body.
Right.
But these ones are specifically on the skin. With time, they can go deeper and then they spread to other parts of the body. But initially, they would begin from the skin. So that's what we call a skin cancer. There are several types of skin cancer. So that's what we call a skin cancer. Any type of cells that grow out of the limit and they become cancerous, in that they can even cause death. They eat away normal tissue, and that's what we call a skin cancer.
Do we have any statistics for the case of Uganda about how many people would be facing this? Well, how many people come to your clinic, for example?
In Uganda, statistics for Uganda are quite difficult to get. They're quite difficult to get, that's the truth. In maybe, if someone has a skin cancer, categorically, like in a week we could get maybe 1 or 2 patients who confirmed to have skin cancer.
Okay.
Yeah, that could be the rate.
Looking at the diagnosis,
Yeah.
First of all, how do I even know that I may have skin cancer?
Okay, skin cancer is, we always advise people, if you have any lesion, you have a patch, you have something unusual on your skin, that changes in some ways. One, if it changes in color, color is the most important thing. It's a bit light and it becomes darker and darker, or it's dark and it becomes lighter and lighter. Change in color, change in size. It's a slow change. You see, over months or years, you're seeing this lesion is becoming larger. That is a change in size.
As you grow, it also expands.
It's also expanding. So it's changing in color, it's changing in size, it's changing in shape.
In shape?
In shape as well, yes. The shape becomes more irregular. If something has a regular shape, it's not likely to be a cancer, because a cancer would grow in any direction that it wants. So if it has to be an irregular shape, and then you get other symptoms like swelling, bleeding, those are main symptoms that we advise people to look out for. So if you have something that is changing over time, it's evolving, you need to have it checked out. Those are main things: change in color, shape, size, and if there's any bleeding or any other symptoms.
What then are the different types of cancer?
There's so many ways of classifying the types of cancers. I prefer going from the categorization using the causes of the skin cancer.
Yeah.
The most common cause of skin cancer in Uganda is HIV. HIV, once your body's immunity is down, you also have another virus that comes in called human herpes virus 8. And that virus causes a skin cancer called Kaposi's sarcoma, which we call KS. It's a very common cancer in HIV patients. Actually, it's one of the signs that you look at. If you see that you have a Kaposi's sarcoma, then chances are very high, like almost 99% that you have HIV.
Really?
Yes, so that's one of the categories.
So most HIV-infected persons would
that are high risk, yes. Especially the lower your immunity goes down, the higher the chances of you getting the Kaposi's sarcoma. Then the other major cause of skin cancer, which is rare in blacks, in Africans, is the sun. The sun causes its own types of skin cancers. One is called basal cell carcinoma. That depends on the type of cell that has got the cancer. Another one is called squamous cell carcinoma. And another one is what we call a malignant melanoma. So these are depending on the type of cell that has been affected. But the main cause is always the sun. In Africa, we have melanin that protects us in blacks, but sometimes we do get cases of people who have those types of cancers. In whites, people who have white skin, they're usually more prone to having this skin cancer. So it's actually a big issue in
the West.
In the West, exactly. Yeah. Even here, especially the white people who are in Uganda, it's a very high risk because it's a very sunny environment. You are at the equator, so they have a higher risk of getting the skin cancer from the sun. And of course, you can't forget the special group, the albinos, because they don't have any melanin to protect them. They're also at a much higher risk of getting any type of skin cancer due to the sun.
Right.
And then we can talk of another category, which is due to the white blood cells. The white blood cells in the skin, sometimes they become cancerous. They become rebels, as I call it.
Yeah.
So that's a type of cancer which you call cutaneous T-cell lymphoma, meaning it's for the skin, and only the white blood cells in the skin that become cancerous. So they spread out, then they affect the skin. That's another type of cancer. That's how those are the main major categories that would talk about skin cancer.
Well, some major medical terms there, but
yes,
the main
I try to see what I can use in layman terms, but they are usually difficult to find the terms.
Right. Let's first focus on Kaposi's sarcoma, which is more common here
in Uganda. Yes.
In Uganda. How do you even prevent that? So should we assume that if you have it, then you are HIV positive?
Unfortunately, yes.
There's no other option.
There's another option.
There's no other explanation.
The other explanation is if
cause of Kaposi's sarcoma.
There's what to call, there's a type of Kaposi's sarcoma which is also mainly in Africa, in low-developed countries, but that is also rare. Another type is if you're taking medications that suppress the body's immunity. I mean, like anti-cancerous medications, or you have a disease and they're giving you corticosteroids that suppress your immunity, then you can also get it. But in Uganda, really, chances are high, over 90% that it will be HIV.
So then you would have to take ARVs to fight it, not even any other skin cancer treatment.
Well, Kaposi's sarcoma itself needs treatment, but in most cases, if your body's immunity gets back to normal, sometimes it can be resolved. It can resolve when you get ARV treatment. Yes.
I've always asked myself, are there things that as human beings that we do that, apart from the sun, sometimes we can't control the sun.
Yes.
But are there habits that we have or our lifestyle that makes us more susceptible to skin cancer?
Well, they're quite rare. Sometimes the causes are unknown. So most people ask about the habits. The most common habit that we talk of is smoking, because smoking can cause any type of cancer, so many types of cancers.
Right.
That would be the main habit that I would think of, really. But other than that, apart from HIV and the sun, The other types of cancers really are unpredictable and they usually have no known clear cause. So they just happen, they just come like any other type of cancer.
The most adverse effect of cancer would be death.
Yes,
tell us
it
about
spreads.
yes, tell us about as it spreads. Are there
Yes.
stages which develops so that you catch it maybe
Yes.
at one point?
Yes, it depends on the type of cancer. So all the cancers have their own ways of staging.
Okay.
Some cancers just stay localized, meaning they stay in one place, they don't spread to another part. So those ones are the good cancers, skin cancers. Once they're removed, then you're in the clear. But other types, if they're not looked into, if they're not removed at an earlier stage, they'll really spread. They'll spread to the rest of the body, they pass through your bloodstream, then they go to the rest of the body, to the bone marrow, then they would go to the brain,
Wow.
to the lungs, to the liver. That's when they'll cause death. Those
For,
are types
for
that will
Kaposi's
spread.
sarcoma, does it also have a stage?
Yes, Kaposi sarcoma also has its own stage. Yes, it's from the time it's localized, where it is, and how it has spread. Also, it also does spread to other organs, just like other cancers. So Kaposi sarcoma also does spread. It also has a staging system that we use.
Right.
Yes.
Well, if you're just joining us, I'm with Dr. Malik Sempereza from Unity Skin Clinic. It's on Acacia Avenue, and you can probably go there and get diagnosed and see if your skin is doing well. But we're also looking at what we can do to prevent skin cancers. Every Wednesday we talk health. So join the conversation on Twitter at Morning at NTV and Facebook Morning at NTV. You can alternatively send us a text to 6565. Doctor, if you look at the treatment,
Yes.
you know, of course, some of us, when we hear the word cancer, we know you have about 2 or 3 years to live, and that's it. You're gone. How can we prevent some of these types of cancers?
Prevention for the types of cancers is, one, if you are fair-skinned, okay, if you have a frequency of getting sunburns, and if you're white-skinned, especially here in the sunny areas in Africa, it's always good to use sunscreen. Especially on the exposed parts. We apply sunscreen on the exposed parts. That is the face, the neck, the upper chest. If you're wearing V-necks or a lady, so any parts that are exposed, you put on sunscreen. That is if you have a higher risk of getting the skin cancer.
I've also seen some people putting sunscreen on their lips.
Yes, you can also get, there's another type of cancer that you can get on the lips, just because of the sun. Especially if your lips are light and they don't have enough melanin to protect them. We've seen that type of cancer also. You can't get that cancer on the lips.
Right.
Yeah.
So using sunscreen?
Using sunscreen, staying away from the sun as much as possible if you have a higher risk of getting skin cancer. And also if you have HIV, the earlier you get diagnosed, the earlier you get treatment, the better, because the immunity will pick up, and then your body will be able to fight itself from getting the Kaposi sarcoma. So basically prevention of HIV, which was the topic earlier.
Yeah.
Prevention of HIV. If you have HIV, you seek treatment as soon as possible to prevent getting things like Kaposi sarcoma.
Right.
Yes.
Wow, I am definitely going to be a medical doctor this morning. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll definitely continue this conversation.
Yes.
And probably visit the clinic for some more practical stuff.
Acacia Mall.
And Acacia Mall, Unity Skin Clinic.
Yes.
And that's Dr. Malik Sempereza. If you are there and you want to continue this conversation, we shall definitely continue. We'll get Dr. Malik on our Facebook pages and he can answer those questions. Now standing by is Isma, who has the sports update this morning. Good morning, Isma.
Good morning. It's that time when the World Cup squads keep trickling in. I'll be telling you about Ivory Coast. Also, I'll tell you about Oklahoma City Thunder. This morning, they won a game they should never have won against the LA Clippers, as the feud between Donald Sterling and Magic Johnson goes on. Uganda Cranes are now in Njeru. They're training at the artificial turf. I'll tell you about that. And then we have a tennis legend visiting Uganda. Margaret Court is right here. That's the reason why you're watching Morning at NTV.
Well, thank you so much, Isma. Now, of course, Australia and New Zealand exhibit one of the highest incidences of skin cancer in the world. Let's not join the statistics this time around. Go get tested. We'll be right back with Isma talking sport. Stay with us.
Close-Up Deep Action. We created it to give the world 3 times fresher breath and eliminate up to 99% of germs. Maybe we went too far. There's an outbreak of freshness. Now the best ever from Close-Up. 3 times fresher breath.
That is going to be seriously debated about. We should not get involved in it as a nation.
And it shall be used all over the place.
There's a person who is going to rise up. Pray for the Minister of Health. His life is preserved. In the name of Jesus. Our nation is actually hindrance, is actually the whole gay thing. The debate is going to rise again.
What's that?
That document.
Oh, that. Just some business.
I came to apologize. I have no right to interfere in your lives.
I've eliminated the only evidence that links me to Ivan Chinawa's death.
But you didn't have to kill another person.
It's not like I've got anything to hide, Nene. Just go ahead.
Victoria, how is it like to work for Miles Filagazi?
Blood seemed to matter not.
Blood?
Yeah, blood.
I'm responsible for your father's death.
Oda, I no go stop to the singing.
No problem. Keep singing. This singing will put you in trouble very soon. You won't believe it's the boy's father that inflicted such injury on him. Just because he stole 50 naira. 50 naira for that matter. That man should be arrested. Oh, God. How I wish I could just see that man and give him a piece of money. Abigail, I don't care if you're chatting with Barack Obama. When you're at work, you learn how to detach yourself from that phone else to get you into trouble. Whatever. I mean, you should be happy that a pilot is asking your friend out.
My brother, I learned that 3 armed robbers tried to rob a man as he came out of the bank at the junction before the express.
Don't try to be the hero.
You won't kill me. Do you know how long I've been waking you up quietly and you refuse to wake?
Now you can't interrupt someone.
I'd like to pray with you, nurses, being the vessels that the Almighty God has been using to heal His people.
Okay. Can someone please talk to me? What is going on?
Who is she?
See, I hate cheating in my life. I hate cheating and nothing will make me have 50 kobo to that money I already get you. Follow the beat, follow the beat, follow the beat, follow the beat.
Follow the beat.
Follow the beat, follow the beat, follow the beat, follow the beat.
Follow the beat.
Follow the beat, follow the beat.
Follow the beat.
Follow the beat, follow the beat, follow the beat, follow the beat.
Follow the beat.
I was going to my hall, someone came from my back and was
how? Tugenda okwera kechiro. Yanga mwami omanyi? Oakeko nango omulundi gw'ogusembayo.
I went to the nurse and I asked why. Why is it that our father is negative and for us we are positive?
Every time I find a story of assault of one person to another, I get disturbed.
Mwayombye ekiro lwaleeta suzeewo lwe bakwokezza.
Nazepoza kimu nti mujja wange yanjokezza.
Kino ekyafa kino kyali kyakulira muno mu lubuto.
The Irene I know just loves music and loves to sing. I've never seen her even smoke a cigarette.
The days of legal trade in slaves are history, following its abolition in the 1800s.
They tie you like this. That's when I started getting past.
Everybody has a story, but yours will only become our story when you share it.
Running out of airtime can happen to anyone. The next time you recharge, simply dial *161# to get going again.
On the next episode of La Patrona.
It was an accident. She slipped and hit her head. I didn't want to kill her. I swear I didn't mean to kill her.
You're lying, you fool!
No, no, no. You can stay and listen to everything the gentleman has to say to me.
But you're gone. Come on now, is this any way to receive a friend? One might think you're afraid that I'd hurt you.
Are you crazy? No. That was a warning shot, but I swear, the next one's for her. What's going on, Irene? Wait. If you lay a finger on my son, or graze him with a bullet, I swear I'll kill you. The only despicable traitor here is you, Antonia.
La Patrona.
At Orange, we know that running out of airtime can happen to anyone. That's why we bring you Wetase. Simply dial *161# to get going again. Convenience changes with Orange. Today changes with Orange.
Well, thank you so much for staying with us. It's about 15 on to 9 o'clock, and what an awesome show we've had. In the first hour, we had the big story, focusing on the HIV prevention and control bill. The Parliament has passed, waiting for the President's signature, and focusing really on the criminalization of the infection of HIV. Does it make sense? Will law help address this issue? And just before, in a couple of minutes ago, I was talking skin care and prevention against the cancers with Dr. Malik St. Pereza from Unity Skin Clinic. Continue the discussion online. That is at Morning at NTV on Twitter and Facebook, Morning at NTV. Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Looking dapper and ritzy, like Peter says.
Why ritzy? What's the meaning of that ritzy?
I have no idea, and I don't.
But you still use it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds sophisticated.
It does indeed.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying my cup of tea. And Brian, you actually made me laugh earlier when you said, did Salva Kiir think he was going to Ethiopia for a cup of tea? Well, I don't know about Salva Kiir. Maybe not.
You know, and that's why most people will look at Kony maybe as a bad man. But if you're not interested in the peace talks, don't appear. Don't waste people's time.
But there is no way peace talks have been the wish of the two warring parties. They are forced on them by mediators or by the so-called international community, which international community is never complete until the US joins. Because have you ever seen an international community that has Burundi, Uganda, and Rwanda as an international community?
Well, in East Africa, we have the League of the Willing, so really. Yeah.
So all peace talks must be forced on the warring parties. Did you expect at any point for Salva Kiir or Riek Machar?
But you don't come out and say this. But on to more exciting things. Maybe if your sister slapped your husband, what would you do? I'm reacting to the video that is going bananas. Yeah. How dare she?
And she was in the lift as well.
Yeah. Would you just look on?
Well, if my sister was drunk, maybe I'll just say, you know what, leave
But
her.
Jay-Z should first of all sack his bodyguard. Because the bodyguard, how do they beat him like having a bodyguard is right there? She even kicked him and the heel came off and Jay-Z had to hold her foot. Actually, I was seeing there's a hashtag on Twitter that says, bring back our girls, take Solange.
So, I kept thinking to myself, how dare she stand there and her sister is goofing her husband? Shout out to Jay-Z, who was a gentleman. Do not beat a woman, no matter how strong she is.
I actually feel, for women who beat men, why fight with a man? That I never understand.
Yeah, she's a black woman from the ghetto, so that's how we do it.
Get the moment to beat me, you'll know. time women beat
Yes, you leave me when we're walking from the studio.
Well, let's talk sport. Continue that discussion online. You can hashtag bring back our girls. Text for lunch. Morning at NTV. Uganda is currently hosting the Zone 5 Under-18 basketball championship. How has been the response?
The response has been very poor because they've not got the number of fans I would have expected. And I don't think FUBA did a very good job in terms of publicity. Yet it's supposed to be a very big tournament. At a time when basketball here has not had a lot of underage competitions, I would have expected this to have been very hyped and something that everyone would have been interested in. But then, I think also the Zone 5 as a region hasn't helped itself because so many of the countries are not even taking part. It's only Rwanda, Kenya, and Uganda. The only 3 countries that are taking part. So there are so many countries that are missing. Burundi isn't here, Tanzania isn't here either, neither is Ethiopia, nor is Egypt, who would be playing ordinarily in this region. So a lot of it taken out. But I think for the under-18 boys and girls who are playing, a chance for them to get some amount of exposure, because I know most of the basketball players from secondary school get lost in that between the high school and university. They never play again. If they can't get into the teams in the league, they never play again. If they can't get into, well, probably these days they have a chance with the D-League and Division 1 right below, but they don't get much of a chance. So when it ends today, I think FUBA will look back on having this team probably stay together for some time, because we're some of the best players from the school, secondary schools competition from last year who are playing in this. So it's the cream of the young players in Uganda. You hope they can keep them together from here going on forward.
Well, let's hope for the best.
Well, tennis legend Margaret Court is in the country now. Her name actually doesn't ring a bell. So what can she do for tennis?
Her name doesn't ring a bell, and probably you represent a certain generation.
I've heard of Billie King, Billie Jean King,
Billie
at
Jean.
least that one. But I haven't heard of
John
Margaret
McEnroe,
Court.
Jimmy Connors.
Jimmy, yes.
Yeah. Gustavo Kuiten.
But this guy's born like in the 60s. She was huge. I've read about her. And,
Margaret Court.
Yeah.
Yeah. She retired back in 1977. So for a large generation wouldn't relate to her quite a bit. One of the most successful.
We're in the Roger Federer generation.
Yeah. Yeah, she won 25 Grand Slams. She's here to conduct a clinic for tennis, and actually according to the Daily Monitor, she says she might even open a tennis academy here. And if she did, she would have done a great job for tennis in this country. She's an amazing person if you see the kind of success she's had. We live in the Serena Williams generation for women's tennis. But I think Uganda Tennis Federation, like all the others who have hosted all these great athletes, Arthur Ashe from right through to Gary Kasparov, who came in just not too long ago, and Brian Lara, they want long-term benefits from this. And I hope for the girls and boys that Margaret Court will be training in Lugogo over the next 1 week, and probably if the academy comes to fruition and all the other things, people will look back at a successful visit of a legend who made an everlasting impact on the game here. Right. I really hope she does.
Right. Well, our national team is moving to an artificial turf in Jeru. Is that going to help us?
I've always never realized the difference between playing on the artificial turf and the ordinary grass. But at least
the artificial turf is smooth.
Yeah, it's much smoother.
You can easily celebrate a goal.
Yeah, okay, the ball moves a lot faster. That is probably the biggest concern. But the players themselves always make a lot out of this. And hopefully, when they are training in Nigeria, because they're going to be playing on similar conditions in Madagascar and they travel there, probably it would have helped them in terms of acclimatization of the condition they'll be facing when they go to Antananarivo. And I remember just not too long ago, Germany were going to play Kazakhstan away from home, and Kazakhstan don't have the natural grass, so they use the carpet. And German actually, I think, had to fly to Switzerland to find the conditions they're going to be facing, because when they thought it was that important. So
how serious is that?
I've never really found it. Really it's just because I don't play sport, maybe. Probably if I played, I would be able to relate the difference between kicking the ball on the ordinary grass we know, on the pasparam like we call it, and then on the carpet, the green carpet like people do. So I think it's going, for the cranes, probably by the time they live in jail, they should have acclimatized. And I think it takes away things like doubts and fear when you know you've used the surface before. And like if you went there and the surface totally new. So I think Micho and the boys are looking forward to going to Antananarivo and feeling like they are playing in Injeru.
Right.
Okay, if you are a manager and you make a few mistakes, but you still beat Manchester United, isn't that enough for you to keep your job? I mean, the Tottenham Hotspur manager has been fired, and I'm thinking, but they beat Manchester United. You can say that was a target I achieved.
That's below the belt.
Tottenham are that kind of team. They always change their manager. Not surprised at all. I actually expect Tim Shaw to be sacked probably earlier. When he made that, when he was given a red card or something. Yeah, when he came in, Tottenham were 5 points behind Arsenal for 4th place. Now, by the time the season is ended, they are 10 points behind. That means they've reached regress. But if you look at Spurs, they always change their manager. Since Daniel Levy became chairman back in 2001, they average probably a manager every 8 months. And like Gordon Strachan once said, the former Glasgow Celtic manager, a manager's lifespan in a job is only 4 games. You can't win 4 games, you're out of a job. So probably Tim Shaw has oversaid. But somehow Spurs need, I think Spurs are going to get to a point where they need to figure out their manager appointment, right? You can't keep changing every time and then. And that's the thing that Arsene Wenger says about Spurs, that they are 14 years behind Arsenal. That you cannot keep changing. Probably he also shouldn't talk too fast, because Spurs is always up there, 4, 5, 6. They want to be in the top 4 consistently. That's the kind of money they spend, because at the start of the season they spent £90 million. Way more than Man City. What did Man City do? They won the league. Where did Spurs finish? They finished 6th. Yeah. So do you get the disparity there? Now that's a problem with Tottenham. They spend as much as City. City win the league. Spurs finish 6th. Get the manager out of office.
Right. Well, let's talk the World Cup. Spain's squad is out. Ivory Coast, Uruguay. But I want to focus on Ivory Coast because of Africa's representation in this. The Golden Generation have been handed another chance to redeem their careers. Is it a wise move? Will they finally be where we need them to be?
I look at the group they are in, and I think Ivory Coast have a very good chance of making it past the group stage. They're only going to their 3rd World Cup. If I look at the last 2, probably they had no chance. Back in 2006, they were in a group that had Argentina and Netherlands. Then 4 years ago, they were in a group that had Brazil and Portugal. So probably they didn't have a very good chance of making it through to the latter stages. Now, for the golden generation of Didier Drogba, Yaya Toure, Didier Zokora, Kolo Toure, without Emmanuel Eboué, who has by the way been ignored, the former Arsenal right back, Emmanuel Eboué.
Is he any good? I've never thought he was.
No, he's always been, I think, decent. He's always been decent, not probably exceptional. But I think they have a better chance than they'll ever have in terms of being able to make it to the later stage of the World Cup. But it will all depend on probably, for me, it will depend on 2 things. One, Yaya Toure has got to come to the party. He's got to play probably 30% as good as he's played at Man City. That would be good enough for me, for Ivory Coast to make it through. That's one way. 2, they've got to score way beyond Didier Drogba, because Didier Drogba never fails at these big tournaments. But beyond him, I don't see so many other goals. They need Javinho to carry some of the form he's shown at AS Roma this season. He's been playing very well in Italy. They need probably Lassina Traore if he's fit. He's been selected, the guy at Everton. Just had knee surgery last season, so he hasn't played that much football. So they need, I think, to get some goals in there, because defensively they never concede much. Actually, in 2006, when they were making their World Cup debut, even when they were playing Argentina didn't have much of the ball, they only conceded 1 goal. And I remember I took a Robin van Persie free kick against Netherlands for Ivory Coast to lose by 1-0. But it's that area of scoring goals that they've struggled at the World Cup. They could hit at the Nations Cup, but the World Cup they haven't done it so well. So I'd love to see Sabri Lamucci design a system where they could have Javinho and all the other guys involved up front, and probably get Yaya Toure in as many positions as shooting at goal as they could. And if Yaya Toure plays well, who knows? He's one of the best 3, 4, 5 players in the world right now.
Well, Javinho obviously doing a good job after leaving Arsenal. I guess there was a problem. I'd like to know if Man U will compete in any other cup except Barclays League, quickly.
No, they won't. They'll only be playing the Premiership, so they should be hoping something like what Liverpool had last season. Playing 1 game a week should be helpful for Manchester United.
To come back, since they want to have a good comeback. All right, you can continue this conversation later with Ismail, Mansi and Alan at 1:30 p.m. as they get down to the details in Omumuli. Before we head out, your African proverb. A single stick may smoke, but it will not burn. Sent by Jackie Kaitesi.
That needs, Brian, where did you grow? Who grew you? Because you need to grow up somewhere where there is a fire, where they use firewood for cooking.
A single stick can smoke.
Who grew you, first of all?
Yeah.
But you don't cause a fire. Yeah, I think it's about teamwork. It's about teamwork. When you're going to probably cook food and you use the stick in terms of firewood, not one will make the food ready, But when you have several, when you have a collection of several sticks, they create a team that is able to, probably if Brian, you came here every morning and this morning at NTV alone, if I'm watching TV, I would hate you because you're alone.
Well, there are some people that hate me already, even in teamwork.
Even in teamwork. But still, there's something they like about the show. Someone like Simon. I know one of the people who gets a lot of comments is Simon because of his aggressive nature of interviewing. But those, they hate and love him in equal measure because of the team. Andrew here, all the guys who do the cameras, or it's about the team. It's never about that single stick to create the fire.
Fantastic.
Probably if we didn't have Mabel seated here like yesterday, I'd be bored.
Hey, so that's the team, eh? That's the team. Okay, it's now a complete team, eh? Well, Angela Chitimbo, probably we need your, we can't post something, then you say, meaning what? We want you to tell us what it means. But if you'd like your proverb to be profiled on this show, let us know. Post it on Facebook or Twitter, or send us an SMS 6565. We'll do. And thank you so much, Jackie Kaitesi, for sending that proverb. And I want to say, have a fantastic day. Let the hashtag go on. Bring back our girls separately for Boko Haram, but for Morning at NTV, bring back our girls and take Solange. Is still going on until tomorrow. And let us know if would you allow your sister to beat your husband while you're watching Women? Beyonce, very disappointing woman.
Maybe the husband was in the wrong, and she was like, Bamukube.
There is no sound on the video. That's annoying.
Yeah. You know, she must have been like, yo, you know, tip, tip, tip. Yeah, but suck the bodyguard, big for nothing. Okay, we'll see you tomorrow. And hasta la vista, baby.
You're watching Morning at NTV with Simon Kasiate, Mabel Kebirunji, and Brian Mulondo.
NTV, turning on your world.
There's a war that is going to be seriously debated about. We should not get involved in it as a nation.